Hi, I'm Joey Bacala. I'm the founder of Self-Determined Athlete. And the purpose of this video is to briefly go over the courses for the recently announced 2021 USA National Championships for Masters. So I was very excited to hear that they were going to be in Albuquerque, New Mexico, kind of in the surrounding areas, which is where I live. I actually live just off the road race course. And these are all courses that I have experience with, that I've raced on, that all the locals around here have raced on. So by all means, we're all very excited about this course, and we would love to share what we know about the course with all of you who are considering coming. So with that, I'm going to just jump right into it. Just know that here I'd like to just provide a very brief overview of what the courses look like so that you're familiar with them, but in the coming weeks I would love to go out and film the courses with a GoPro, provide some more context on how these courses typically play out and how different types of racers might approach their preparation for it. That's what we do. So let's go ahead and start with the time trial. This is what we would typically call our Double Eagle time trial course. There's an airport in the middle of the course called the Double Eagle Airport. But typically when we race this course, it's a 20K. It's really just using this main stretch here. It's out and back. And I think in the name of keeping things fairly standardized, they wanted to lengthen this for some of the categories to be a 40K. Unfortunately, it's probably not going to be the fastest 40K you've ever done, just because there are two turnarounds and there is one hill. For the most part, the course is relatively flat with some gentle rollers, but approaching the halfway point, near the turnaround on this road, which is Paseo del Norte, you do go down a fairly rapid descent, make the turnaround, and then when you come back up, sure, this is a climb, but keep in mind it's not as bad as it looks. This is just a relatively flat course. This is really only about 350 feet over the course of maybe 3 or 4 miles. So by all means, it's still a time trial, a classic time trial. It's got a few turns, it's got a couple of turnarounds, and some undulation, although it's not super climby. But overall, a very well-balanced course that will really favor the strongest time trialist, as it should be. Next, we're going to cover the road race. This is our beloved Heartbreak Loop, or 505 Classic Loop, or Adoption Exchange Loop. It's a road race that we have used for many, many years here. Sometimes more than once a year, we'll race on this course. And by all means, the feature that gets talked about the most is called Heartbreak Hill, which is kind of here on the way out. And it is steep, yes. It looks mighty on the course for sure, and by all means, it is significant. You'll definitely notice it, but it is very short. This climb typically is going to take less than 5 minutes for most riders, and it's really just one of those hills that everybody kind of rides at their own pace and tries to get to the top. And while it does break up the field, it's usually followed by what is a fairly exposed and kind of windy false flat descent. And so because the speeds are so high, kind of off of this, all of the separation that occurs tends to kind of rubber band back together on this stretch. People tend to clump back up in groups, and then it starts coming back together. Not always, of course. People can get away on Heartbreak Hill plenty of times, and if they've got the strength to get away and stay away, then that does happen. The problem is when you get to here, kind of on the home stretch, headed towards the finish. This is called Frost Road. It's typically fairly straight-on block headwind, sometimes a bit of a head crosswind. And once again, this kind of helps to shut down the small breakaways that typically are consisting of some of the best climbers in the race. Finally, you do have one last little short section of rollers and kind of a final punch to the not the last corner before the finish, but the second to last corner. And by all means, the final turn onto North 14. And this finish, it's going to be a little different from where we typically run it. Typically, the finish line has been somewhere around here on these little sections, which are in fact uphill. But for this race, they've moved the finish line, and it's going to be just about 1.5 miles, 2 miles after this right-hand turn. And this is a slow speed turn, keep in mind, because it's uphill in a headwind. But you turn onto this fairly rapid downhill section of North 14. And then when you reach the south entrance into the Paco neighborhood, you'll make a left turn into the finishing chute. This turn itself is not the most technical in the world, but it is going to be so fast, leading into what is going to be a fairly quick sprint, because again, you make this turn and even this section is still downhill. And then there's just a small amount of kind of false flat rise to the finish line, which again, I'm actually not sure that this is exactly where it's going to be. I will find out, and then when I put together a more detailed video, you guys will get full, you know, a full picture of what that looks like. But the bottom line is that after you make the final turn, you know, whether you're doing 1 lap or 2, you know, you'll make that final turn on your final lap. And this section right here is going to be very, very quick. It is usually a tailwind, and it's not a steep downhill, nor is it a technical downhill, but this section of road is notorious for rolling really, really quickly. So if you've got, you know, good punch and you can get away on this final climb, or you're just really good with these technical corners, you know, high-speed corners headed into a finish, it could be a very good course for you. So while Heartbreak Hill is sort of the feature that gets the most attention on this course, it is not usually where the race is won. Probably a more accurate way of putting it is that you can absolutely lose the race on Heartbreak Hill. But just because of the amount of flatter and false flat downhill sections that are exposed to wind, it's very rare for a really punchy climber to get away on Heartbreak Hill and stay away. It's more likely just going to drive a selection and shed some of the weaker riders. So that's a general overview of the road race. And then finally, we have the crit, which will be at our Balloon Fiesta Park. Really, really neat crit course because it's kind of wide open in a field where you can see the entire course no matter where you're standing or riding. So it's great for spectators. This is the finishing stretch. The course will run clockwise. This finishing stretch is very wide open, plenty of space. The rest of the course, these grid roads are a little bit more narrow. You can see that they're just about 2 lanes going across, and they have these kind of tight 90-degree turns, and they're not tight necessarily, but with a large pack, as you might expect at nationals, you know, it could take the pack a minute to get through these corners, excuse me. It may be single file or 2 wide in some cases. One nice thing about this course, though, is that, you know, you overcook a turn or you get pushed out, no big deal. You've just got a huge grassy field to go into. So overall, it's a nice course. As far as crit courses go, it's pretty well balanced. These hills are not as impressive as they look. Certainly, there is a rise headed into this second to last turn, and then similar for the final turn. But for the most part, this course it feels very flat. There can occasionally be a westerly wind coming across the course, though. And that's it for now. That is kind of just a very brief overview of what the courses are like. And I'll actually just zoom out to kind of show you here. You know, the courses we were just looking at, there's your crit. The time trial is over here. Out west, and then the road race is on the eastern side of the Sandia Mountain. So a kind of a nice spread around the city that'll show you a few different areas that we like to ride. I will come back and post, like I said, more detailed videos and analysis of these courses that'll hopefully be useful for anybody who's preparing for these races. If you have any specific questions about the courses, feel free to post them in the comments. But if you actually have questions kind of about your own take on this race or you know, your own preparation for this race, feel free to actually just reach out. I'll post a link to the contact form for the website of Self-Determined Athlete. And yeah, reach out because we might be able to help you prepare for these races. Don't be shy. Thank you, and I hope to see you guys in August.